Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the weekly MMA Cycles Market Update. This is Gianni DePoci, your host. It's Wednesday, so it means that it's time to review the geocosmic activity of the past couple of days and the ones coming up ahead. So, needless to say, there hasn't been all that much intense geocosmic activity since last Friday's square aspect between Venus and Uranus. But let me go ahead and share my screen because the action starts to pick back up next week as we have Venus set to ingress into Virgo, and then Mars will square Pluto, followed by Pluto going direct. Venus opposite Saturn, Mars finally going into Scorpio, which could be significant for precious metals. Mars trying Saturn, and then a solar eclipse next weekend. So needless to say, after a pretty quiet week so far, we will see a lot of action in the stars, but stocks still on the defensive. You can see the Dow Jones hitting a new multi-month low here on Wednesday. We're definitely on the defensive. We took out the primary cycle low in August, which renders this primary cycle bearish in theory. This could leave us on the defensive for the coming weeks. And, you know, there is no shortage, I should say, of tough geocosmic signatures this month and November as well. So something we will keep an eye on. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ here, holding up significantly better than the Dow. And if anything, this is a good sign. Usually when you are in a serious market correction, there's a tendency for technology to lead the market lower. Now, we can still see market pullbacks with tech not leading the way lower, but usually it means that the decline is corrective in nature instead of the start of a new bear market. So something to keep in mind, as I'm sure fear levels with respect to sentiment are starting to rise. Not any big Uranus aspects next week, but there are a lot of hard aspects between, whether it's Saturn or Mars or Venus. So when the malefics start to make hard aspects between one another, you can see reversals. And one market we're especially keeping an eye on is the bond market. TLT, the long-term treasury bond ETF, which we track in the MMA monthly ETF report. A little bit of a rebound today, but not without some conviction. A lot of changes happening in Congress. Obviously, former Speaker McCarthy was thrown out of his position. They did pass a spending bill for a month, so we're going to have to deal with that again in a few weeks. And could the new leadership in the House of Representatives represent a major headwind to budgetary, compromises that could send Treasury markets lower again? So there still is time to go lower in the Treasury market, but we are coming up to some very important long-term cycles that are going to be due. They are due, and we discuss those at length in the monthly cycles report, which will be published Monday, the 16th of October. Let's go ahead and take a look at GDX, a proxy for gold miners. Still struggling immensely, but we look forward to a low of significance before, or at least slightly after, Mars ingresses into Scorpio. So keep an eye out for that because we could see some pretty dramatic price action in the precious metal space. Let's take a look at USO, the crude oil ETF, major day of distribution here. And previously, our bias was that we are coming off a primary cycle low from here in August instead of the primary cycle low in USO from mid-March. The spot price of crude oil actually made its low in early May, but that doesn't change the likelihood necessarily that this was a primary cycle low in August. But nonetheless, major distribution today. We are due for a major cycle trough in crude oil. So, but this is something that the Fed, I'm sure, is happy to see to kind of pull back in some of these inflation expectations, which have been rising because it seems like markets are readjusting for inflationary pressures remaining higher than longer, or they could be pricing in more discord in Washington, D.C. with respect to the federal budget. So something to keep in mind as the U.S. comes out of its Pluto return, budgetary issues and fiscal issues are at the forefront of policy right now and driving a lot of macroeconomic trends. Let's go ahead and take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin's still holding up pretty nicely. We talked about how we generally have a bullish bias in Bitcoin as long as we do not take out this low from June 15th. and we're still holding above that. It's showing some nice relative strength here. I like how it took out the high from late August. That does create a higher high, but we're not quite out of the woods yet. I want to see how we make it through all of those hard Venus aspects next week, especially the Venus opposite Saturn. If we can get through that, it's a good sign. And then when it comes to Ethereum, keep an eye on Venus going through Libra next month, because that'll be in November. Because whenever Venus goes through Libra, we have a statistically higher probability of a 20% price swing in Ethereum. So if we don't make a new low in Ethereum, we could see, a move into the $1,800–$1,900 area potentially, assuming, we don't drop below 1,600. But I'd be looking for a 20% or greater move once Venus goes into Libra in Ethereum. Last I want to look at is the euro as a follow-up to our discussion with Ulrich last week. Nice short squeeze rally here, but we are fading off the highs of the day. We're still very much on the defensive, and we like the idea of the dollar returning back to parity with the euro, probably by the end of the year, and perhaps even slightly below that. So that's all that I had to share with you today. Thank you so much, as always, for watching our weekly market update here at MMA Cycles. You can find all of our reports, our educational content at www.mmacycles.com. And stay tuned for these month's guests. We will have Ray back on, and we're going to have another special guest coming up as well. So that's all for now. Wishing you all a great rest of your week, and we'll see you same time, same place next Wednesday.